How many times has this happened to you?
Something wrong? This is Tower. We got a moron on the runway.
What's up guys, it's Brandon again, and I am bringing you another War Thunder video. This is going to be a video about taking off and landing with American heavy bombers. Now, of course, you guys are probably familiar with the B-17. You've probably been seeing it a lot over the past 2 days because of that event. Guardian Angels, I think it's called. So I've decided to do a takeoff and landing video of this, and maybe an emergency landing in there somewhere. But I've noticed that a lot of people sometimes struggle with taking off and landing with bombers. They just either, one, don't know how to take off properly, or two, when they're coming in for a landing, they either come in a bit too hard, or they just, you know, come in a bit too fast and overshoot the runway. But we're going to cover all that today in this video, and we're going to also do the B-24 Liberator as well. So let's get started. When taking off on a runway, the B-17, it's very notable to realize that this thing does not turn on takeoff. So you gotta fly straight and you gotta get a lot of lift. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna max it out. We're gonna go 100% with this thing. And when you're taking off, what I normally like to do is I like to raise the flaps to get as much speed as possible. We're going down this runway. Let's just make sure they're raised. Yes, they are. And then when you get to the end of the runway, what you want to do is you want to put your flaps down to landing or takeoff, whichever one allows you to do. And then once that happens, it creates lift. Now, when people go wrong is when they take off like this and they don't put down their landing flaps. And sometimes they'll carry over and they'll just slam into the other side of the cliff there, or anything else that's in the way. So go ahead, put up your landing gear. Oh, guess it already came up automatically. And once you're comfortable and you're going at a good speed, start leveling off, start raising your flaps. And then just let your speed climb. Now note, this is with 8 1,000-pound bombs. So results may vary, depending on what you're using. So there you go. Basically, you took off in a B-17. Just remember, watch your landing flaps and takeoff flaps. Make sure they're down after you reach the end of the runway. That way it gives you more lift and it gives you more time to turn if you're heading for a mountain. Say like that one. You didn't get enough lift. I know that's a very popular thing to do on the map Korea when taking off with a bomber, American heavy bomber. I don't know who designed the map this way, but there's a cliff at the end of the runway, and a lot of B-17 pilots, they don't know how to turn in time. They don't know how to get enough lift. So what they do is they just go smack dab right in the middle of that thing, and they couldn't have hit it more perfectly. So it's basically how you take off. I wish I could get footage on Korea with this thing, but I hardly ever get that map anymore for some reason. So I guess what we'll do is now we'll start transitioning over to the landing. Okay, now for the landing portion. When you're coming in for a landing, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to drop your throttle to around 40% if you're within the 350 to 300 kilometer mark. So that way your speed is going to drop just slowly, just enough to keep you up. Then if you feel like your airplane's slipping and getting ready to crash, what you're going to want to do is throttle back up, which I'm getting ready to do here, and make sure your landing gear is down. So when you're about 100 meters from the runway and you're at about around 270 kilometers, start raising your speed. That way you gain enough lift to maintain that. And then once you feel comfortable again, they go ahead and drop around 50% again. And normally what I like to do is I like to shift my camera around a bit. That way I can see if I'm coming in for an okay landing. And there you have it. I am on the ground. Now if you get a little bit of balance, that's just fine. You can toggle your raised flaps and your landing flaps. That way it gets you back on the ground faster when you're in raise. But the landing flaps are just to slow you down. So there you have it. There's a landing for the B-17. Okay guys, now time for the B-24 Liberator takeoff and landing. It starts you off in the air on this map whenever you're test flying it, so watch out for that if you want to practice. So I had to re-land it again, but that's fine. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Very similar to the B-17 takeoff. What you're going to want to do is raise your flaps up, and then go ahead and max it out. Now I sure do hope I can make this runway because the Liberator is kind of chunky to get off the runway here. It's a bit heavier than the B-17 it seems like, but that's okay, that makes some landings a bit easier. We're going to kind of wait till the last moment here to drop our flaps, and so I'm trying to figure out whether or not we're going to clear that. Go ahead and drop it now. Start pulling up. Trying to get my landing gear up here. Man, that was a really close takeoff, I'm going to tell you. You can't feel it, but when you're actually behind the keyboard and, you know, PC screen here, it's kind of hectic. Okay, it looks like I'm... Okay, I might be going back down. Am I? Yes, I am going back down. Okay, drop your combat flaps again and get some more lift. Remember, if you start going back down, just drop your combat flaps and you'll get more lift to that. So there you go. Looks like we cleared it. And that's with 8 1,000 pounders, just like the B-17. Go ahead and start leveling off now. And there you have it. Oh, I'm going back down again. Yeah, the Liberator is really hard to take off with, so just watch yourself. So I guess we'll go ahead and transition over to the landings now. I guess we'll go ahead and land on the same landing strip since that's the only one, so see you back once I'm lined up. Okay guys, here we go with the B-24 landing. Now the B-24 is a lot easier to land than the B-17, trust me when I say this. It's due to the fact that this thing has a tricycle landing gear, so it lands flat, and it doesn't have as much bounce as, say, the B-17 when it's coming in for a landing. So what you're going to do is this thing can glide at really low speeds, it seems like, so we're going to drop this thing down to about 50% for the throttle. And I'm going to get rid of those bombs again. I want to do this with a bombless landing. Okay, now if you see, the Liberator is just sitting here at a speed of 266, 267, it's dropping really slowly. So then what we're going to do is drop your combat flaps, and drop your landing gear, and reduce your speed down to 0. And that's okay, we're going into a dive here. And then we're going to power back up so we can keep the speed going. If you can see, I've still got a lot of room to wiggle around here with this Liberator. Very good for the landings. Then once we drop around to 200 kilometers, go ahead and start powering back up, maybe to about 70%. Just kind of fidget it between 50 and 70. Coming in a bit steep here, you guys might want to be a bit lower. Maybe around 100 altitude, 100 meters. And then now if you see this thing just come in just so slowly like a glider. And there we go. Bounce reduction. And we are on the runway. Now if you're running out of runway space with this thing, don't worry. It slows down pretty fast if you just wiggle around the rudders. And there you have it. Landing for the B-24. Now just make sure that you don't make the same mistake like I did there. I just about had to make or re-recorded this because I came in a bit too steep, so make sure that you're a bit lower. But that's it guys, thanks for watching. This is Brandon again, and I hope you enjoyed my video. So have a nice day.